Hello everyone, welcome to Maya 2017. Now, for those of you that have used Maya in the past, this will be a little bit of an overview of just the UI of Maya 2017. Things have changed a little bit. If you've used 2016, things are pretty similar. If you used 2015 and before, you'll notice quite a bit of difference in the look of the UI. So we're just going to kind of go through this. So if you have some experience with this, I'll kind of just explain to you what things are and what have changed. If you're completely new to this, we'll go through and just kind of start from the beginning and go through it step by step. So we'll start with the left-hand side over here, and this is your manipulation box. This here is your pointer tool, and they have or selection tool. They have three different selection type tools here. They have this one here, which is the tool we currently have. This one here, this is our lasso select, which is kind of like Photoshop, where you can kind of drag and select kind of like this. This other one here is a paint selection, which works for component types, which is something we'll talk about a little bit later on. These two here I don't generally use a whole bunch. Usually I just use this one, just the regular selection tool. These next three here, these are your move, your rotate, and your scale. And for us to be able to actually see how these three here work, it's best to actually have an object in our scene to do that. So to create some simple primitive objects, we're going to go over to the Create tab here. We're going to go down the drop down here, and you see underneath Objects we have NURBS primitives, polygon primitives, and these are for volume primitives, lights, cameras, curve tools. Mainly what we use are these two types of primitives, the NURBS and polygon primitives. So I'm going to use polygons. That's primarily what I use, and we'll go to we'll just create ourselves a cube, and you'll see it just drops in the middle of the screen there. Now, if it didn't just drop in the middle of the screen here, it's probably because you have interactive creation turned on. So go over to Create, back to Polygon Primitives if this happened to you, and make sure this box right here is unchecked. If it's checked, it means it wants you to draw the cube on this grid here. That makes it to where you don't necessarily start with a one-by-one cube. You end up starting with something, whatever you happen to draw. So, okay, let's go ahead and work here. So we got our translate tool, which is this one right here. Also good to know that the hotkey for these three here is W, E, and R. W for move, E for rotate, R for scale, and Q is for selection. So you can kind of go through the hotkeys and not have to use this box at all if you're use Maya enough. So anyways, translate tool. We have these three arrows here, and the green arrow represents up, is the y-axis. The blue arrow is your z-axis or z, and then our red arrow is our x-axis. Now, x-axis means side to side in 3D space. Y is obviously up and down, the green here, and then our z, which is forward and back, so this gives sort of depth inside of our 3D space. Otherwise, we'd be looking at just a 2D piece of paper pretty much without the z-axis here. So if you want to grab each one of these guys here, you can translate them back and forth, up and down, side to side. Now, if you see this box here in the middle, all my students usually end up grabbing this box initially. So I just left mouse button click here and start to drag this all over the place. The problem with grabbing it like this is the way that this is working is it's based off of your camera inside this viewport, which we're currently looking through in 3D. This is the viewport, this area right here. So depending on the angle that I have depends on which axes this is going to move in. So it's kind of unpredictable. I mean, if you want to be a little bit more predictable, and you want to make sure you're kind of using these arrows here, which kind of moves it in exactly the z-axis or just in the y-axis. If you want to bring it into two different axes at the same time, they have these little cubes on the side here. This makes it to where it will go in just this is y and z, so it goes just in y and z. There's no x. This one is just the opposite. We have x and y, no z. And then this one here is z and x, no y. So that will lock it down to two different axes. That does help a little bit. So I know that might be a little bit overkill as far as information for this first tool, but all three tools share the same kind of common look here. Alright, so let's go into our rotate tool here. Okay, same deal here. You see this green one, that is our Y, so we can grab this. Oops. Make sure you just grab that one color there. It rotates just in the Y. We have our blue one that is just in our Z, and we have our red one that is just in our X. And if you grab this teal one, this goes in all directions based off the camera view, just like the other one. Again, I always tell my students never to grab this one because usually you aren't rotating this in a way that's going to make sense with whatever you're trying to fit it into. So I usually try to steer everyone away from that one, but it is there for a reason, so sometimes you'll find a use for it. Okay. Next one is scale. So we're going down the line here. Here's our scale tool. And the center one here, this is one time I say that it's okay to grab the center location. This will make it to where it scales in all axes at the same time. That's good. Same thing with the X. We can scale those apart, right? Blue is our Z, and Y is our Y-axis. So that's how we can distort our shape here and change it for modeling. Okay, so those are the basics. Those are our modeling set. Over here are our manipulation tools. Okay, so going a little further down here, these little icons here, the first one we have here is our viewport, what we're currently looking through. So if we're in something else, like this one here, we've got this split panel here, I can click this one, it'll go back to our viewport like this. This is our 4-panel right here, so this will bring it into 4-panel view. Makes it to where I have, this is, see how it says side X, this is our side view. Down here it says front Z, that is our front view, and top Y, this is our top view. These are called orthographic views. It means that they're locked down to just 2 axes, which works really well when you're using reference images to help you create whatever you're 3D modeling. But let's say you're done with this, you can go click this icon here, it'll bring you back to perspective. Or if you want to go into just one of these 4 views to where they're full screen, just push your mouse into whatever view you want. So let's say I want to do the front one here. Then when you press spacebar, it'll make it to where this one goes full screen. So there we go. We have front Z is our big one. If I want to go back to my 4-panel view, just hit spacebar again. We're back into our 4-panel. Into our perspective. There we go. Perspective. Perfect. All right. Okay. So what I just hid there, I guess I can go ahead and bring this back out. This is called your outliner, and really simply this is just your organizational box. It tells you what is inside your scene currently. So right now you see how it says P cube 1. That is the object I have here selected. Now if I select somewhere else, you'll see it turns off. There's no light blue over here anymore. So click it again, there it is, or I can click it over here and it'll highlight inside my scene. There we go. Okay. Right now it's very simple. There's some cameras, these perspective, top, front, side. Those are the cameras we're currently looking through in our orthographic view cameras. You have some of these default lights, which lights our scene up. So very simple right now, but as our scene gets more complicated, you want to have everything named nice and neat and organized. So right now I'm going to change this. Let's say we're going to call it Mesh Cube Demo. Okay. Now, mesh is the prefix that I like to use for anything that I'm using that is made out of polygons. If I'm using joints for animation, I use BN. There's naming conventions for everything. It just makes it to where when you're creating things inside your outliner. So let's say I duplicate this guy and create a bunch of these guys that I can now have cube 1, cube 2, cube 3, and it just helps me keep my scene organized in here. So a lot of times when you're working in a bigger project, you'll be passing this off to somebody else, and if you don't name everything here, it just says P cube 1, P cube 2, P cube 3, and you pass it off to somebody else, and then open up your outliner to start working with something that's more complicated, they can get really frustrated with you really quick. So pick out a naming convention, keep your scene inside your outliner organized. Okay, so let's keep moving on here. Let's look back up here at the top here. So what do we got here? New scene, open scene. Now you may be thinking to yourself, like, this is the same thing as like, a file, which it is. You're correct. That is exactly what it is. It's the same thing as if you're in any other program. You say new file, open file. That's kind of what this is. But since we're dealing with an animation type program, when they say scene, is kind of what you're thinking of as far as you're making a movie or a commercial, and the scene for a movie. That's kind of what they're thinking as far as how the naming goes in this. Now, before we go and just jump into this, we want to create ourselves a project. That makes it to where once we go far enough down the line here, things will start to get organized things that we save in its respective folders. And for me to kind of describe it without pulling it up, it seems a little out of order. So I'm going to go ahead and just show you. The first thing you want to do anytime you start any project inside of Maya is you want to go to File, and you want to go down to Project Window. Right here. So it says project window, set project. We're going to go project window. And we're going to go to new. We're going to say this one's going to be called, let's say, we're going to call it Maya demo. Okay. And location where I want this to be at. Right now it's stuck underneath the documents, underneath Maya projects subfolder. That's a little hard to navigate to, so I'm actually going to stick it over on top of my desktop. Just save it right there. Select. Okay, so it's going to be saved right into my desktop. And now you can see what I'm talking about. There's all these folders in here. See how it says there's a scenes folder? Now if we went to save scene file, you would see this file would pop up right in here. So if you're looking where's my scene file goes saved, you go to your projects folder, you go to your scenes file folder, and all your scenes files will be in there. Now, when you come to rendering, let's say I batch rendered off like 3 scenes, all those renders end up inside my images folder because Maya renders out individual images for animations. We'll get to that a little bit later on. Clips. Now, clips are, those can be, actually that's more of an advanced animation set when you do tracks editor stuff, more of an advanced animation topic that we can get into at a later time. Let's see here, what else we got? Movies. Usually when you do like play blasts, stuff like that, those will all get stuck in there. You'll see I have disk cache. That stuff is for like when we're going to cache out, so like pre-render out some physics stuff. That folder's for. Let's see here, what else we got. We've kind of pared some of this stuff down in 2017. So some of the things you usually have are kind of gone here. But usually there's source images. So source images is anytime you have a texture file, those will all get stored underneath your source images folder. But anyway, so this is just Maya's way of organizing where everything goes that plugs into each other inside of Maya underneath one standard folder type or setup. So once you're happy with this, you just go ahead and hit accept, and there we go. All right, so moving on down here. Okay, so we're done with file. Actually, there's one last thing we want to do. We want to go to set project. Okay, so we're going to go to set project, and Maya demo is going to be my project I'm setting it to. Okay, and that makes it to where now anytime I save or want to plug in new texture files, it'll automatically, since I set this project right now, it'll automatically go into the Maya demo folder and look for those particular file types, and it'll store everything there as well. So I'm going to go to File, make sure to do that one more time, Set Project, and Maya demo, and it's now set. So now if I go to File, Save Scene As, you see now it went straight into Maya demo folder. I didn't have to navigate there, and it knows that's where I'm going. And it goes to Scenes, and I can say this is demo scene 1. Okay, save as, continue. Working with an educational license there, so just all right. So I think we're just about done with the file section here. Okay, yeah. There's some import export options, but I think that we'll get into that stuff a little bit later on. There's some send to Unity options, send to Unreal options if you're working with a game engine. All things that I think that we'll deal with later on in more advanced lessons. But if you're savvy with previous versions of Maya, this could be very useful for you. Just send it straight over to Unity or send it straight to Unreal. You have your standard export import options all underneath the file drop down. Okay. Also, so if you have a situation where, like, and I turned mine off already, but where you're hovering your mouse over things and you have those little yellow boxes that are popping up with information, one thing you might want to go to do is to turn that off. You want to go to settings and preferences, and you want to make sure you go to your help and turn off this box here. It says display tool clips. That one's kind of annoying. It helps to begin with when you don't know anything about Maya, but very quickly it just starts to get in the way of all the different tools you're trying to work with. So when you're done with that, just go ahead and hit save. Go ahead and close this out. All right, let's go ahead and move on a little bit. The next thing I want to go over is this part here where it says modeling. Now, something that they changed from Maya 2013, 14, 15, when they made the jump to 16 and 17, is they revamped this a little bit. So it used to be you'd have polygons here and you'd have surfaces here for polygon modeling and NURBS modeling. But they decided they're just going to combine the two. So now surfaces and polygons are now located underneath the same menu sets. And what I mean by this is if you look up here, you can see all these tools up here where it says display, windows, and then it starts to say mesh, edit mesh, mesh tools, mesh display, curves, surfaces, deforms. Curves and surfaces, those are things that are underneath the NURBS type of modeling, which is that NURBS are an algorithmically driven modeling type. They're different than polygons, but I'm not going to really quite get into that right now. I just wanted you to know that those two, they combine those two down. So if you're familiar with previous versions of Maya, this is going to be something that's kind of new for you. Just know that they combined those two different drop downs into the same one. But as what I'm talking about, so for those that are new, if you switch this from modeling to, let's say, rigging, keep an eye where it says mesh, edit mesh, mesh tools, and you go to rigging. And now it's changed. Now it's got skeleton, skin, deform, constrain, control. They changed all this around. So basically what's going on here is that this is set up for an animation type workflow to where one stage of the pipeline is modeling, the next stage would be rigging, the next stage after that would be animation, and then would be effects, then would be rendering. So they're kind of keeping in mind here the way that they're stacking their program out is how the pipeline would work inside of an actual animation studio. So modeling always comes first, so that's the reason why it's at the top here. Next phase would be after that we would go into rigging. Now I'm not going to go through and explain all these right now. Right now I'm just going to stick with modeling, mainly because these are all more advanced topics, and if we're doing an introduction to Maya, getting into what all these are is going to be way over your guys' heads. So I'm just going to stick with modeling for now. Later lessons we'll get a little more into it. Okay, so next we got let's go ahead and take a look at actually our objects here. Something I want to explain for anyone who's new to this, that we have on this cube here, they have three different kind of component types. Now the object is called object mode. It's just the object by itself, all its components included. You just grab it, move it around. Now if you want to manipulate the components of this object, the components of this object consist of the manipulatable components in 3D, because they have a couple other ones that aren't that are also manipulatable but aren't 3D located. There's like the UVs and whatnot. Sorry, a little bit of a tangent there. But the three that we have are called vertexes, edges, and faces. Now you can access them through your modeling toolkit, which is located up in here. I think it's is it this one? Here's our modeling toolkit. So the first one on the left here. They also have your component types. So you have your object mode, your vertex mode, your edge mode, and your face mode. I usually like to use my floating menus. I'll just hold down right mouse button on top of this guy here, and that's just faster for me than having to go over here and grab these. Kind of just a faster workflow. So to hold down right mouse button on this guy here, and we got our vertex. And now you can see the corners on these have all turned pink. Alright, so that's our vertex mode. If you want to drag over a couple of them, you can move them off to the side and change the shape of our box very easily. You can grab all of them together and you can scale them together, create some different interesting shapes. We also have edge mode, so we can go to edge mode here. We can select individual edges. We can scale these edges and change the shape of this guy. Get some crazy looking objects really quick. Something else we can do is called face mode, which is the surface of these polygons. And same thing, we can grab these guys, just move them around. We can scale them as well. We can rotate them. All kinds of things we can do with these guys. So lots of possibilities. Once you start manipulating the components, then you're into what real modeling is all about. Okay. All right. Next, let's go to the attribute editor before we jump into this modeling toolkit, because this will kind of be its own little animal. But going to our attribute editor, let's take a look here. We have, well, actually before we go to our attribute, let's go to our channel box. So here's our channel box up here. Okay. These are tabs, little side tabs here. Now, all these little side tabs, if you are not seeing one of these, so there's one that says or channel box, there's one here that says modeling toolkit, there's one here that says attribute editor. These are all the tabs up here. So you see, here's our modeling toolkit one. This is for animation, character control tools. This one is our attribute editor. This next one over is our tool settings, and then our one right here is our channel box. This is the one I'm currently in. Now, something that's good to know about Maya is that these big, dark, gray lines on this grid here, this is our origin. So our origin lines. So where they intersect, that in 3D space is known as your origin. It's 0, 0, 0. And if you look over here underneath our translate X, Y, and Z, rotate X, Y, and Z, and scale X, Y, and Z, rotate and scale are all zeroed out. That tells me that this guy here is at our origin, which is important. Now, if you go over here, you can see that this one here is translated off negative 1.73. This one over here says negative 3.81. So that tells me that these guys are in the z-axis moving away from this one here, and how far away they are moving away from it. Now, if I want to bring it back to the origin, it's all I have to do is just go up to our translate value here and zero that out. Now, that works really well because, you know, in some cases, when it comes to animation, you want to be able to return something to the origin or to its starting position, and be able to grab it and zero out the channel box makes it to where you can always do that. And when you're dealing with animation, there's multiple spots that can be an origin. So this is the world origin right here. This is 0, 0, 0. Now I can make this one here. I can make it to where this is this object's origin by freezing the transforms on it. The transforms are right here. Now if I freeze it, I'll turn this here to 0. So I'll go to Modify, Freeze Transforms. Okay, so now this one's 0. So now this makes it to where I can move this over here and over here, and if I zero these guys out, it'll always go back to this position. So that these transforms are frozen. So as far as this object is concerned, this is its world's origin. So if you're freezing transforms, just do it intentionally. Sometimes you can do that on accident and make it to where you can't get back to this origin here without eyeballing an overlay on it. Okay. Alright, so let's see here. Next, I want to show you guys underneath the attribute editor, because I mean we already kind of went through this real quick. I mean this was translate, rotate, and scale. Those are all very obvious as far as what their roles play. If you want to change the scale values, I guess it's the only one I really mess with. You could always just go in here and manually change these values. But okay. Alright, so the attribute editor. Most of the time I don't mess with any of the stuff in the attribute editor for these particular shape nodes. They do have some information that I do kind of mess with every now and then. Underneath this particular one where it says Mesh Cube Demo 1 Shape. One thing I do sometimes mess with in this area here is underneath the render stats. Depending on what it is, sometimes I'll turn cast and receive shadows off. Depending if I want this object to cast or receive shadows. Sometimes it's something that is encompassing everything else, so I don't want it to cast shadows, otherwise it'll make everything inside dark. So sometimes I'll turn that off, something that you might want to play with. Sometimes I'll turn double-sided on, makes it to where you can see on the other side, or makes it where you can't see through on the other side. But this is kind of more of an advanced topic as well, something that we're not going to really kind of get into at the moment. When we get into a different project later on, we'll kind of go into some of this stuff a little more in depth. Something I do want to point out though is that in the attribute editor, anything that's connected to our objects will come up underneath a tab. Now this is including every operation we do. So one thing that's always at the very end is our Lambert, which is what makes it to where our objects are visible in 3D space. Alright, so this is kind of how we control our colors and our textures. So underneath color here, I can go ahead and click on this side one here. Actually, let's not get that advanced quite yet. We're gonna take a step back. This is how we attach maps in. But I think I'm going to save this for the next lesson since we're hitting almost 30 minutes. But I do want to show you how you can change some colors rather quickly on this. So you can go over here and just click on the color node here, and we can change this one here very easily to a red texture. And you see how it's changing all the colors for this. This is usually kind of considered a no-no. The reason why is because Lambert 1 is what everything inside of Maya is assigned to initially. So initially what you want to do is to create yourself your own shaders for every object inside of Maya. So if you change Lambert 1, you'll see this kind of thing happen. And as you create new objects, everything will get this kind of pinkish color going on because I messed with the shader that everything is attached to begin with, which is Lambert 1. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump into the Hypershade and create ourselves a couple custom shaders for each one of our boxes. And that's how we're going to end this lesson for today. We're going to go to Windows. And some of the stuff has changed around. It used to be a Hypershade was down inside this area, but it's not here anymore. It was a shortcut they had that I really liked, but it's not there now. So you can go underneath. Let's see here. There we are. So underneath rendering editors, Hypershade. That's the one we want. Okay, give me this little floating box off to the side here. Let's see if I can dock it. Doesn't want to let me dock it. Anyways, let's see if I can do something else here real quick. We'll try one more thing. Go to Panel, Layouts, and we'll do 2 panes side by side. This will make it to where I can actually navigate. I can basically turn this one here into the Hypershade. So I can just go to Panel and Hypershade, and then this panel here will become the Hypershade. Okay. All right. So first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to bring this back to that boring gray color that it was before. Okay, maybe a little bit darker in that. That's okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create myself underneath Maya here. Let's move all this stuff. It doesn't want to let me do that. Maybe if I get rid of the attribute editor. Sorry, I'm just trying to make some room here. But these guys here are hogging it up. There we go. Push all that over there. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to show you guys where the Lamberts are. There we go. Alright, so we have Maya and we have Lamberts. And if you click on these guys over here, it kind of pairs down which shaders are what. It gets kind of overwhelming initially when they give you all of them right away. It's also underneath here, Surfaces, Lamberts. And we click on that one time. And I clicked it a couple times, so it created more than one. But you see here I have Lambert 2, 3, and 4. Now I can grab Lambert 2 and say, okay, this one here is going to be, we're going to do a blue color. Yeah, looks good. This is kind of like a preview over here. And I can add it to this Lambert or to this cube over here by simply middle mouse button, drag and drop it over on here. Okay. There's another method as well. I can take this one over here. Let's take this one, and we're going to turn this one into this red color. That looks good. Oops, I didn't save it. I did. Sure, that's good. So there's the drag and drop method. So middle mouse button, drag and drop on here, or you can left mouse button click this one, right mouse button on the shader and go to assign material to selection. Assign it in that way as well. Whatever is easiest for you. Okay, let's do for this one. We're going to do a yellow color. So let's do something like that. And again, I'm just going to drag and drop this one on here. Okay, so middle mouse button, drag and drop. Make sure you see that little plus sign on top of the shader before you drag it out of here. If you just do one of these left mouse button, you don't see anything happening. That's because nothing's really happening. You need to see the plus sign before you do anything. So hold down middle mouse button to see the little plus sign below your little pointer, and then just drag it onto your shape over here. Okay. All right. So I'm about half an hour in, so that's running a little bit long. Press spacebar and get back into this. So I'm going to go ahead and pause here. I'm going to go ahead and save this. I'm going to go File, Save Scene, Continue. Okay. In the next lesson, I'm going to go through and show you guys how to do some animations with this, some very simple animations, and how to do some rendering. And that will kind of button up our introduction to Maya overview. And then we'll jump into, or I'll lead in after the next lesson into our first project, which will be our solar system project. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next lesson.